Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. So my interview today is with a guy by the name of Dayne Pratzky. He is the Frackman, and I hope I've got your interest already. He appears in a film about the coal seam mining gas industry. I hope I got that right, Dayne. He's a great guy. You're going to fall in love with this guy. You really are. And we talk about a lot of things. We talk about big oil. We talk about top down, bottom up, and about grassroots development and about grassroots activism and how we but this idea that we have to take back our governments. And Dayne has a lot to say. Believe me, there are laugh out loud moments in this film. I hope you go to see it. It's called Frackman. It's going to be playing at the Human Rights Watch Film Festival at TIFF coming up very soon. So look into that online. What I love about some of the things that Dayne talks about, not only in the interview, but in the film, is this notion that, we do matter. We we've got to be bold, and we got to be brave, and we got to be proud, as we take on some of these issues that we see around us, and the fact that we can make a difference. Brilliant, ultimately marvelous stuff. So I think you're going to really enjoy Dayne, and make sure you get out to see the film Frackman at the Human Rights Watch Film Festival coming up March 30th. And here in Toronto, and check it out, davidpecklive.com for more interviews, and Dayne Pratzky coming up. Well, welcome to Face to Face. We are joined digitally by a very special guest all the way from Australia. I guess this morning for him, this evening for us here in Toronto. Dayne Pratzky, also known as Frackman, is here today on Face to Face. Dayne, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks, David. I really appreciate you catching up with me.
So obviously we're going to talk about the Human Rights Watch Film Festival, Dayne. We're going to talk about human rights and social justice and so on. But who the hell is Frackman?
Frackman's an average Aussie bloke who, I was a pig shooter, I was a construction worker, wasn't really interested in the environment. Obviously I recycled like everybody else and thought they were doing their bit, but I was injured in a work accident when I was working underground. I used to be a tunneler, dig road tunnels. And from there I moved to Western Queensland, which is totally out of the ordinary for me, and soon sort of became a homesteader, so to speak. From there, I thought that I was living quite a rewarding life, supplying my own energy, my own water, and it was something that was very, very rewarding for me. And then the unconventional gas industry, the coal seam gas industry, decided they would come over the top of me and destroy everything I'd built. And I wasn't having a bit of it. Many people said there's nothing you can do about it, but I wasn't prepared to take that answer and started off what's been coined as a David and Goliath battle, so to speak.
So we're as a kid, Dayne, as a kid, were you the guy at the, in the classroom or in your Sunday school class or at your Christmas dinner? Were you the one putting up your dukes and saying, guys, no, this is the way it is? And I don't mean going out and picking fights with people, but standing your ground and saying, hang on a minute here, something's not right.
Most definitely at primary school and even through high school, I was definitely one to be reckoned with in the classroom. For teachers and other kids in the playground, I didn't often take a backward step. So I think having that sort of attitude on life helped me take this industry on. It's a $70 billion industry in Australia that's just starting up.
Wow.
So to take on a $70 billion industry with very little knowledge of how the industry works and the collusion between governments and industry, was probably something that people would sit back and think you're mad for taking that on. And I never thought I'd be in this situation myself or take on the fossil fuel industry, but it seems to be the way it turned out.
So are you confident or crazy?
Confidently crazy.
Nice. Nice.
probably the best way to put that. I look, I'm just a normal guy, and I think that everyone has the right to live in their own home and go about their day-to-day activities in peace. They shouldn't be, racially discriminated, sexually discriminated. Discrimination is one of the destroyers of the fabric of society. So for me, I just took that on. I don't feel that you can just go away. Businesses can't go about what they do and destroy everything around them and everyone around them, and people just sit back and do nothing. I just don't think it's fair. And look, that's something that I'll continue to fight for.
So Dayne, let's say you were left alone. You called yourself a homesteader. Let's just say that the gas companies, the fossil fuel industry didn't start to drill around you. Do you think eventually you would have found your issues? So I guess the question is, are you really an activist at heart?
That's a very, very good question, because I was actually quite embarrassed at how uneducated I was on the political scene, on the environmental scene. I sort of didn't really take notice of that. I was more worried about hunting and sort of just doing my day-to-day thing.
Sure.
So I'm not entirely sure. That's a very good question. It's a very hard one to answer. But
well, you're kind of screwed now because you can't go back, right? Now knowing
right?
what you know.
That's exactly right. Mayor Tillman of Dish in Texas said, "Once you know, you can't not know." And sometimes I wish I could not know, because it's quite distressing at times when you see things like the TPP and these free trade agreements, and you look back and you look at what's happening in the US now with Donald Trump. It'd be really nice to be able to turn your back on that and worry about some very simple things in life, but unfortunately, it chose me. I didn't choose it, so it's sort of it's got to soldier on from here.
What I love the way right out of the gate in the film you admit that, hey, listen, I was no environmentalist. I didn't really. You almost say, and maybe you do actually say, I can't remember. I didn't really care about the environment. It wasn't really my thing. And I think what I love about this is we see you become so passionate. I mean, over the top in some respects. Almost the guerrilla-like tactics that you guys employ to get your message across, to make this film, to really test these guys out to see if they're the real deal. What is at one point you say you just want the truth. What I love about that, Dayne, is your sort of forgive the language, but almost your conversion experience, if you will. And I'm wondering, as an activist, you've traveled now the world, you've seen the success of the film. How do you get other people on the same page? How do you convince others that, hang on, guys, this really is worth thinking about and worth talking about?
Look, I think the way governments are behaving and the way the fossil fuel industry is behaving, I think it's natural progression for a lot of people to think, well, hang on, I've got children. I want them to have the same upbringing that I had. I want them to live in a clean environment. I want them to have the opportunities that I've had. So when you come across governments and industries that are putting people second and profit first, I think it's a natural progression for a lot of people. Getting people involved is very difficult, because you don't want to be that guy or that religion that knocks on the door and harasses you every morning. You don't want to be that person, because they're annoying, although very well intentioned. So I think that's why my story has been very powerful, because I'm not the traditional activist. I never sort of got myself involved in this sort of thing, and that's why I think stories like mine are so resonating to so many people, because here's an average guy who was doing pretty average things, turned around to do extraordinary things, and still a pretty average guy.
Do you think, Dayne, there's any characteristics that you have that, could you almost write a blog about the 5 things you need to be a good activist? You know what I mean? Like, you said you're the guy who, clearly you've got strong opinions. You stand up for what's right. You stand up for the little guy, etc. You're not afraid to speak your voice. We talked earlier offline about, there's a scene in the film when you come over to the States and you're a part of a rally and you just hop up on stage and you grab the microphone and you dive right in, man. Here's a passionate guy who cares about what he's talking about. What are those 3, 5, 6, 10 qualities, or maybe even one? I don't know what it is, but tell me more.
I think, and it's not only through the environmental movement and the activist movement, and it's politicians. You see the way people are they want to say something, but they just think, oh, that might offend somebody, or I need to ensure that I include 99% of every single person on this planet into my message. Well, I don't think that way. I've got something to say, and you're here to listen. I'm going to say it, and if it upsets you, I really apologise for that. However, I'm not going to change my message to suit your needs.
Right.
So I think a lot of politicians, and that's unfortunately why the madman Donald Trump is getting that sort of publicity and following, is because the guy says what he means. Although he means the stupidest things ever and says the dumbest things ever, it's very refreshing to have someone in power turn up and say what they mean. Not this, hobbly gobbly bull crap that politicians and people in the public eye seem to consistently retort. So I had all the political training. I had all, that was part of the film. I was taught how to answer a question without answering the question. And I took that on board, but I never actually ran with it. I think I'm better off just saying what you mean, and it will offend some people and it will inspire others. So
are you talking, do you think, Dayne, about sort of transparency, honesty, authenticity is, it's things that often, politicians lack?
That's 100% right. Authenticity, and it is a very rare commodity in the modern world.
Do you think that at one point, which I love to, at one point in the film, you say, once you get over the anger, then you can start to almost, these are my words, these are Peck's words now, but once you get over the anger, you can almost start to think through what are the implications and how am I going to respond. But I'm wondering, there was a quote from somebody, I think it's Michael Brederick, and I can't remember who that person was in the film, but he said it's about the fact that it wasn't that they just didn't respect us, there was actually contempt towards us. And I'm talking about the fossil fuel industry here. Do you think that's really what the issue was, in a sense, that you were, you got shots of you on the phone and getting hung up on and being put on hold, and clearly the message is they're not listening. Is that part of what this is all about? You want the big guys to listen?
I just want, for me, I think it was important to make people understand in the fossil fuel industry and in big business and government that I do matter. Right. Just because you sign these multi-billion-dollar deals selling gas to China, it doesn't mean that my rights come second. And if they wanted to sort of push my rights to a second place, so to speak, I was going to stand up for myself. And look, it wasn't just me, as you said, Michael Brederick, absolutely fantastic guy. Scott Collins and Narelle Collins, and you had Debbie Orr, and we were the early sort of group that took that stance. And I think it's a lot of people are becoming more and more like that. They want to be listened to. There's nothing worse than sitting down and listening to people saying, "Oh, but there's nothing you can do about it." But there's nothing you can do about it. Well, guess what? There is something you can do about it. But you've just got to do it. You've got to put yourself out there, and you've got to be bold, brave, and proud of your message. And that is the only way forward from here. We have constantly been put second to corporations, interest and profit making. That's not the way this societies were built. Societies were built on governments who had the people's best interest at heart. Now it's turning the other way. Governments have the corporations' best interest at heart. So more and more people will be standing up and will be saying, no, I've had enough of this. And when people see those figures stand up and say, yes, I agree with that guy is doing something, it sets off something inside the average person that says, hang on, potentially I can do something. All I have to do is actually get up and do it. And I think that's one of the the pivotal points, really.
The film is clearly about the fossil fuel industry. The film is clearly about the facts and about getting the truth and about what's going on and around this actual issue. But for me, your film is brilliant in the sense that, and congratulations, by the way, but your film for me is about the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that we do need to fight back, and that we do matter, and that we do have a voice, and that we do have opinions, and that change is possible. I mean, doesn't Dayne Pratzky believe that you can teach old dogs new tricks?
100%. I always say the minute you stop taking shit is the minute you stop receiving it.
Right.
So the minute you stand up and say, no, I'm not putting up with that, is the minute they start to listen and the minute that they start to change their behaviour. We cannot stand by and be passengers on this journey of ours. We are heading into a very important time in the history of mankind. We're moving away from this destructive fossil fuel industry into this new generation of energy, and it's not through the company's will to do that. It's through the people's will. Mm-hmm. No company, especially fossil fuel industries, who have excessive power over governments and over communities, that they don't want this to happen, because all of a sudden they've lost the most profitable part of their industry, which they are in right now. So the solar revolution and this alternative energy revolution has not come from the top. It's come from the bottom. And you can see now it's become more than ripples, it's waves, and we're about to hit a tidal wave, and the fossil fuel industry are lashing out, trying to suck every little dollar out of us they possibly can before they become obsolete and done and dusted.
Yeah, it's great. I love what you're saying about how the change and the shift is occurring from the bottom up. And I mean, on one hand, it's incredibly challenging probably to some people, but on another hand, it's got to be pretty darn affirming with respect to, it's tough. You look around, you look at the issues, you look at the problems, they look monumental, right? But I think people like yourself, I think activists, I think filmmakers like Richard Todd, the film Frackman, etc., the Human Rights Watch Film Festival can show us that, we do matter. And that things do change.
Look, politicians don't lead. They never have. They follow. They follow whether it's industry or corporations, or they follow the people. At the moment, I find that most governments have been, and the US is a prime example of how they've been infiltrated. And look, not just the US, the Australian government too. They've been infiltrated by these people who don't have our best interests at heart. They have their shareholders' best interests at heart. So the minute we accept that as the norm is the minute we're in trouble. So this is why I ask people, if you've had enough, don't give up and don't be silent. Be vocal, be proud, and tell your friends about it. That is the best way. If every single person in this world today who believed in what was happening was wrong, actually just converted just their close friends around them, and then they do their close friends around them. Before you know it, we have this wave, an unstoppable wave. It's a tidal wave that's going to overtake, and we are going to take back our governments and take back our land.
Was there ever a point, and I think there must have been, in fact it comes out in the film just based on some of the editing and some of the clips, but it's a pretty funny phrase, and I can't remember exactly what the phrase was, but it was around the point where you guys are talking about the Gandhian sort of approach, being civil resistors and so on, and it looks like you've sort of turned a corner and you're pretty pissed off, and you say something about cracking some heads. Did you ever get close to just clocking somebody right there in the middle of the road?
Look, I think
I think you just answered the question, Dayne.
Well, there was one incident where what I found in Queensland, the workers were exceptionally tolerant and understanding. I should say most workers were like that. Some weren't. We had one guy who tried to slash our tyre with a knife. He got off. We were holding up 4 buses. We had about 1,000 people delayed for work, and they were in a 5 kilometre traffic jam. And one of the contractors decided to get off the bus and try and slash my tyre. Well, I was having none of that, so it ended up on the front pages of a few papers of me and him, with each other. We had each other's collars, so to speak, and we were very, very close to blows. But I give what I get.
Right.
So, to answer your question, violence is not the way to go, but it's definitely an international language that everyone understands, and it's something that was very hard at times to keep under wraps. But the effects of doing something like that would not have just affected me personally; it would have affected everyone around me, and the movement as a whole. So I had to take that on board and realise that doing something like that was not a way forward. It was actually going to set us back. So you've really, it didn't matter how angry I got and how much I thought, just if I could just, punch that Prime Minister in the nose or you just can't do it. You just have to really, sit back and bide your time and suck it up, so to speak. It's violence in the environmental movement has never worked. We've seen that on several occasions. It's just never worked. So I was lucky that I had Friends of the Earth in Brisbane, a fantastic organisation who came to our aid and taught us about non-violent civil disobedience, because I knew nothing of it. I thought, okay, so they come to my house and we punch on and someone goes home with a black eye and a bruised ego. And that's not the way it works. I was assaulted several times and never, ever, in the end, learnt not to react. So there was that one incident where the guy slashed my tyre. He ended up being relieved of his post in the industry, but I think that could have gone very negatively for us, and some people did still take it. The fossil fuel lovers took it as, look, now they're getting all violent and attacking people, when it was just really a reactionary situation.
So you're basically, what you're saying is you're a teddy bear at heart.
Yeah, one made of concrete.
There you go. Hey, at one point in the film, I don't remember again who was actually questioning you, but you were commenting on sort of, big oil. Basically, you were making a comment not about anyone, I don't think in particular. Maybe you had somebody in mind, but you said, quote, "They know damn well what they're doing," close quote. And I know exactly what you meant. However, I wonder, Dayne, after all the time you've spent, the people you've interviewed, the people you've investigated, etc., do you really believe that some of these folks, some of these executives, really do know what they're doing?
Of course they do. It is not. See, the unconventional gas industry is a prime example of that. You see hundreds of thousands of people who are just average people. They're not environmentalists. They're just farmers in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Colorado. They're homesteaders. They're not, they're farmers. So to have this many people stand up and say there's something wrong, and have this mountain of evidence turn up to say that actually you are right, but then the industry through once again collusion with government and insider sort of workings have been able to dismiss it. They know exactly what's going on. They know how can you not look? You don't have to be that smart to work out that pumping chemicals straight through our water sources, underground water sources, into shale formations and coal formations, and hydraulically fracturing them, and then expecting nothing to go wrong. The well casings are a prime example. They're steel and cement. They leak, they break down, steel rusts, cement breaks down. These people are saying, it'll last for 100 years. But what, do you think the world's going to end in 100 years? Of course not. Yeah. These gas wells and these oil wells, they have to last forever. Not just our lifetime, not just our children's lifetime. we're talking thousands of years before the natural rock formations actually reform in that to fill in those holes. That's if it ever happens. I'm no geologist and I don't know how rocks grow, but I don't think they grow very fast. But at the end of the day, it doesn't. You don't have to be that smart to work out what they're doing is inherently dangerous. It's an inherently industrialized sort of process. I refuse to believe they're that stupid.
There was that one classic scene, and I don't know what it was from, but I think it was 60 Minutes in Australia, where the or maybe it was from some other place, but the interviewer asked the guy, and he had no idea. It was classic, the look on his face. He just had no idea what the chemicals were that were being pumped down under the ground.
And that was the guy that was supposed to regulate what was happening. He
Right.
had no idea, and that is the way the industry works. They not only deceive the public, if they can't deceive the governments, they'll infiltrate the government and ensure that these projects go ahead. That guy was just a bumbling fool, and he was a minister, the mines minister. Like, come on, give me a break. It's a prime example of how these projects here were approved. A gentleman by the name of Ian Fletcher, who was one of the UK's top government spies, was installed as the Queensland equivalent of the Environmental Protection Agency, the head of that agency, who actually approved the projects. Mm. He was a spy from the UK. And then once the projects were approved, the guy disappeared off the face of the earth. And the post was taken over by somebody else. So it doesn't, once again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that was a load of, hog dust.
So I'm interested to know if you still believe that this is this particular issue, or would you say just sort of environmental issues as a whole and the cumulative effect of them are the you say it's the greatest environmental threat that Australia has ever faced. Would you go more global than that at this point, or would you say, hang on, it's actually the combination of all these sort of factors that are really making this global environmental threat?
Look, I think if coal wasn't bad enough, with the CO2 effects on the atmosphere and global warming, we know that methane itself has, the stats differ, but at minimum 23 times worse, but all the way up to 110 times worse than coal. So methane and the escaping methane around the world is having an absolute detrimental effect on any chances that we have of containing global warming to the 2 degrees. So I think it's actually the biggest environmental threat the globe has ever sort of faced, and definitely in Australia here, I still believe that.
Do you think, Dayne, that these arguments can be won by getting people like coal and fossil fuel executives into a room and showing them a film like Frackman and many, many others, and having a engaging, substantive Q&A afterwards? Is it a rational argument? Is it a more of an emotional argument? Do you think it's a bit of both? I mean, I almost want to come back full circle to your original comment about how, hey, I was an environmentalist, but I became one.
Look, I think getting industry leaders into a room to try and tell them is a waste of everyone's time, because they, as I said before, they know it.
Oh, by the way, Dayne, I gotta interrupt you just really quickly. Sorry. One of my favorite moments in the movie is when you go to the conference at the Sofitel is it in Brisbane, and you walk up on the stage. Oh, Dayne, I was crying. I wish I was in the room. That was awesome.
That was a $1,500 ticket to get into that conference, and then bide my time, and then just walk up on stage and take over the stage. And as you saw, the big burly security guards weren't too far behind me, but I sort of duck and weave them on stage as best as I possibly can before being dragged out. But yes, it was
that was worth every penny you spent, man. That was beautiful.
Look, there's times like that where you've just got it. Like, that was a very uncomfortable thing to do. Here I am in an industry conference as a guy who's fighting the industry, basically sitting there just going, okay, is it time? Is it time? Then walking up and kicking a cameraman in the foot and just looking at him and winking him. And he just knew straight away, he rolled, and he walking up straight down this aisle. It was like walking down the red carpet at the Oscars. Everyone eyes sort of came on to you, climb up on stage, grab that microphone, and now you are going to listen to me whether you like it or not. Although it was only brief, those security guards didn't look like guys that you'd really want to mess with. So, yes, it was very entertaining to say the least, but it was quite scary. Like,
I bet it was, but also a great metaphor, right? And also very relevant to the question. How do you convince those guys in that room?
I don't think they're the guys you have to convince. I think we have to take back our governments. We have to. There are so many people who are well-intentioned but end up sort of stuck in this merry-go-round of industry and governments. On the other hand, there are a lot of people that are good in government, and there are a lot of people that should be in government that we need to place there. And like in Australia, we have the three major parties, and two of them are just jokers, and the third one are an up-and-coming. The Greens are an up-and-coming sort of party who are becoming more and more relevant day by day. But those two top parties, people say, oh, but who else do you vote for? Who else do you vote for? It's like, well, don't vote for them. Give your vote to somebody else, because at that point they listen. They actually don't care about anything else but getting back in government. So trying to deal with industry is only one sort of slight or small part of it. I think dealing with governments, because in the end, it's governments that allow these companies to do what they're doing. We must take back control of our governments, because they are there for the people, not for corporations. Obviously, corporations have a very pivotal role playing in society, but it can't be all their way. It's we have to have a bit of common sense and fairness in the way we do things. So, look, I think that the key is once again to take back our governments. I see the Canadian Prime Minister, Trudeau. He looks on the surface, he looks like that. Hey, things may be able to change for Canada, and I think it's fantastic. It's yet to be seen, but I think Canada's proof that if you don't like something, change it.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and it's so cool. I was actually in the Phnom Penh airport in Cambodia with a friend of mine, Sean Dell, a filmmaker, and we were just flying home, and we heard there that Trudeau had won, and I think we both high-fived each other and thought, this is a moment. This is not only is this a new government, but this is a metaphor for what's next, and that it is up to us to make a difference. And you're right, it does remain to be seen, Dayne. Who knows what's going to actually happen? But yeah, we're pretty hopeful here, I got to say.
Well, look, with President Obama, I had such high hopes. I'm thinking he's going to rein in the banks. He's going to turn this around, and we are going to be back on even footings. But unfortunately, Obama's done some fantastic things, but I think he's fallen a little short. He had a prime opportunity to rein in the banks when we had the subprime mortgage disaster in the US, which affected the entire world.
Of course.
That was a pivotal time in history where if Obama stood up and said, rightio, you guys, you're on notice, you're being reined in. Not one of those people went to jail. Not one single person went to jail. When you have some guy who commits fraud of $50,000 or $80,000 or $100,000 and ends up in prison, and we've got guys that ripped off the worldwide public of trillions of dollars, and what happened to them? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I don't know if Trudeau listens to this podcast, but if he does,
let's hope so.
My message is, stand up and but that once again comes back to the people. The American public went, oh well, there's nothing you can do about it. Well, that is the old adage that has to be thrown out. And if that happens again, then the people have to stand up in Canada and say, well, guess what? you're gone. Next. We'll keep on bringing in leaders that we need to keep on bringing in leaders that have our best interests at heart.
Yeah, it's great. So good. Hey, we're going to have to wrap it up here in a couple of minutes, and I have to ask you about your multimedia girlfriend.
She's she lives with me in Australia right now, so that's been the one of the brighter sides of the whole thing. Wendy was in Pennsylvania, also affected by gas drilling. So now she's my full-fledged in the flesh girlfriend.
You know what's so cool about it, Dayne, is I love the partnership aspect of it, the scene of you guys seeing each other. I think it was after a year. I mean, don't we face some of these problems together? I mean, at the risk of sounding like a tree hugger and really corny, and I apologize to all the tree huggers out there if that sounded negative in any way. It wasn't meant to be, but it sounds like, I don't know. There's something about the strength in a relationship, that community, even of two. And here you had this community of all these people around you who were saying, hang on, we're not going to put up with this, and there has to be a better way, and damn it, we'd like you guys to listen to us. And I just love the fact that you did that with Wendy, and you guys are, developing, you going even further together, and that's awesome.
Yeah, look, I think that's very important message to get across to people is you will never do it on your own. We have to do it together. You can obviously achieve great things on your own, but without the support of the people around me, like I said, Scott Collins, his wife Narelle, and Michael Bradrick, and we had George and Marion Palmer up the road. We had Debbie Orr. Without the support of those people, I couldn't have gone on. Without the support of Wendy, I couldn't have gone on. So it's one thing to put yourself out there, but my message to people who do put themselves out there or who are planning to put themselves out there, because hopefully this podcast inspires someone to go and do something very cool.
Exactly.
You need to take that support from the people around you, because you end up burnt out, and much the same as I did. I end up really burnt out because I was sort of just working too hard and passion. So I think being part of a community is a good thing. And you know what? It's actually fun. The people that I've met, the experiences I've had with these people are sort of life-changing, and memories that I will hold till the day I die. It's something that it's not all bad. It's not all doom and gloom. There is some enjoying parts of there's parts that you can really enjoy throughout this whole thing, and I definitely did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, tell us about your birthday. It's coming up on Sunday, April the 3rd. I think something else kind of interesting is happening on that day as well. And what is it?
So I get two birthdays actually, because I get to Skype into the film festival in Toronto on Monday, April 3rd as well. So I get to celebrate my birthday here in Australia on Sunday, April 3rd, and then we move on to Toronto for another birthday, where I'll be Skyping in live to the film festival to do a Q&A session after the film. So it'll be 5:30 a.m. in the morning for me. So if you want to see me nasty and sort of half awake, get down to the film festival, get some tickets. And as far as I know, they're selling quite well. So if you're interested, please get down there. And it's really an experience to actually sit in those cinemas, and I get to Skype in and hear the reaction of the people from the film. Some of them are very positive, some not so positive. I get some questions. And so if you want to yell and scream at me, there is your opportunity.
Well, listen, I hope you don't get too much yelling and screaming. It's premiering. It's Canadian premiere, is it?
That's something I couldn't answer you on.
Oh, okay. Well, it's certainly. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's the Toronto premiere, Sunday, April 3rd, 1 p.m. at the Human Rights Watch Film Festival at TIFF. I hope everybody checks it out. Dayne, congratulations on such a great film, and wow, what an experience. I hope we can do a follow-up down the road. I've had a blast chatting with you. There's so much more we could talk about, and love to hear what's next for you as well. But really appreciate your time today.
I really, really appreciate the opportunity, David. And look, please follow me on Twitter, Dayne Pratzky, at Dayne Pratzky on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook as well. And look, I really want to hear what's happening in Canada and how Canada is moving forward to this fossil-free future. So, I look forward to hopefully touring in Canada at the end of this year.
It'd be fantastic. I hope that becomes a reality. The movie is Frackman. It's premiering Sunday, April 3rd, 1 p.m. Toronto International Film Festival, Human Rights Watch Film Festival. Dayne Pratzky, thanks so much for your time today, Dayne.
Hey, thanks for having me, David, and please go and see the film and hit me up on Twitter.